What do you do when a family member triangulates? Do you distance yourself? Do you walk away angrily? Do you put up a defense mechanism and refuse to talk to them? Do you ignore their text messages for long periods of time? You keep them unread? Or do you refuse to engage with them at all? So you're completely stonewalling. What is your mode of protecting yourself from the triangulator? Well, in today's video, I think I'm going to cover that. A lot of you have sent me emails and tweets and messages on social media asking that I focus on various ways to manage a narcissist and somebody who triangulates in the family. It's really hard to deal with family members who triangulate because you can't always keep up with where the triangulation got started. Did it start with Aunt Nikki or did it start with Uncle Billy? Did it start, when I was 5 and it became a pattern or a dynamic over time? Or is this a new thing that's going to become a part of a dynamic as an adult? It's hard to figure out where did this snake start? Usually when I'm talking to clients who are dealing with triangulation, I tell them triangulation is like a snake. You don't know where the tail is, and you sometimes don't know where the head is. You just know that there's something sneaky going on, and you don't know where to go. You don't know how it got started, why it got started. And sometimes it's really difficult to stop it. So in today's video, I'm going to give you some tips on what to do with a triangulator in your family. But before we get started, let me briefly introduce myself in case you are new. My name is Tamara, and I'm an internationally and board certified trauma therapist. I'm also licensed in mental health, and I specialize in treating children, teens, and families, as well as adults, who are dealing with trauma. Let's jump in. You really don't have to be a psychology major, a psychotherapist, a psychoanalyst, or even a psychiatrist to understand how to communicate with somebody who triangulates. It's really simple to manage them once you learn how. And in many of my videos recently, you can learn about the family dynamic. You can learn about the manipulation that sometimes happens in unstable, dysfunctional, and toxic families. We all have something wrong in our families. None of us are perfect. But when you have a triangulator or a pathological liar, for example, in your family, it can be really hard to pinpoint where this has started, how do we get out of this, and how do I protect myself from it, It's not something that you can always address through confrontation or assertiveness. Some people believe that if I just assert my boundaries and if I just assert myself, things will be better. Not always. Sometimes that assertion or that confrontation can exaggerate things and make things worse. It doesn't always help. And so, I think it's important to try different techniques with triangulators. You don't want them to catch on to your tactics, of course, because they may actually switch roles. And, if you're dealing with a narcissistic or sociopathic family member, you might get a persecutor somehow slither his or her way into the victim role. And then there you are stuck, and other people in the family looking at you like you're the enemy. Some people are very manipulative, as I'm sure you know, and they can definitely use their emotions, their status, their financial and career success, their anger, their passion about things to really heighten the emotions of other family members and get them against you. There is some research to suggest that pathological liars tend to triangulate as well. They will lie to their girlfriend over here while they're lying to their wife at home. Then they will lie to the boss, and then if they're not lying to the boss, then they're lying to other family members. They know what to do to keep the ball rolling when they need it to. They also know who to kick the ball to. So let's say, for example, this triangulator is somebody who has been married into the family. They know that their mother-in-law doesn't like them, so they're going to go to the sister-in-law and boo-hoo and cry and really try to get some violins playing in their favor so that they can get the attention in the family. What's likely to happen if this sister-in-law is really skilled at lying, triangulating, and manipulating is that the sister-in-law is most likely going to go to her mother and say, Mom, why don't you like her? She's great. She's been taking out your grandchildren all the time. She's been spending money on little Susu. She's been buying her clothes. She's been taking her shopping every other day. She's been doing my laundry. Like, she's wonderful. What is your problem? Triangulators know who to kick the ball to ensure that they are seen favorably from the people, that they feel they need to be seen favorably from. They really know how to manipulate families, and especially if they marry into the family, or if they have been raised in a family where they feel entitled, where they feel they deserve, and where they feel that they have been the victim. There are actually some triangulators who may grow up into adults, and I'm sure you've seen this within your family, who just go around saying things that just aren't true. Like, I was abused as a child. I was molested as a child. I was sexually abused by my ex-boyfriend. They make up these particular things to get sympathy, to get attention. And sometimes they deal with something we're going to be talking about pretty soon, known as false memories. And they believe things that just didn't happen in their past. And they know how to tell one person in the family and then tell another and tell another. And before you know it, you've got all these people saying, what? Like, when did this happen? That's another form of triangulation. So, without getting into really deep detail, because I think we're going to do this kind of a video again in the future. I think my point is that they are just difficult people, and it's good to know how to deal with them. How do I manage them? So let me give you some tips on how to do that. The first thing that I suggest that you do when you're talking with somebody who's a triangulator, and we're talking about the person who's running around saying that they are the victim. Okay, so I want you to look at this as, maybe you're the persecutor, there's a rescuer involved of some kind, and you're the victim. Okay, so what you want to do is always describe the facts with somebody who's triangulating. You don't want to go to them and say, look, this is what I've seen you do. I've seen you do it, and I need you to stop. That is really subjective. You want to be able to say, you know what, on Tuesday, Uncle Bill said you did this, and on Wednesday, Aunt Carol said you did that. That's using facts, because now she's going to have to go to Aunt Carol and Uncle Bill to get the details, and they're probably going to back you up and say, yeah, that's what we saw. So you want to make sure that you use some facts. The other thing is, if you're dealing with a family member who's a triangulator, and you have some emails, or you have text messages, or you have voicemails, use them. You want to always use the facts, be objective, and be really short, succinct, and straight to the point. Because if you're not, then you're giving the triangulator room to feel offended, to feel hurt, to feel betrayed, and then they're going to take those feelings and go to somebody else who they're going to tag as the rescuer, and then boom, there's the triangle all over again. Okay, so stick to the facts. The next thing is, be open about where you think the confusion started. So I think it's okay to say, you know what, I think this confusion started back when you were 12 in the family, when you lied on Uncle Bill. And since then, you've been believed, you've gotten tons of attention, and now I think it's time for you to stop. Like, this is not okay, right? So it's okay for you to say, here's where I think this started, and this is what I think the problem is. You're being short and succinct. Just make sure, though, that you're not throwing all of your emotions out there to where this person can then run to somebody else and cry and whine and say, she attacked me, or he attacked me, or, they cussed me out, or they disrespected me, because then that person that they've run to is now going to jump into the role of a rescuer, and it's going to be a problem between you two. So just be mindful of that. I did state in this video right up here, if you want to go back and check that out, it's my most recent video on triangulation. I did state in that video that the victim, usually in that triangle, they know what buttons to push, and they know who to run to get that triangle to start up again. There are some family members too who will step outside of the family just to keep that triangle going. And what I've seen is somebody will go to their closest colleague and say, you know what my sister did, and if that colleague is really not well and just manipulative themselves, or they have some kind of undiagnosed or diagnosed personality disorder, they may come to you as the family member and get inside that triangle and make things worse or blow things up. Let me know in the comment section below if that's what you've dealt with before. I have many clients and people who consult with me who have dealt with that. Like, strangers and friends and boyfriends have gotten into the family triangle and just made everything worse. And the other thing that you want to keep in mind about triangulators before we go to the next tip is that they know how to start the triangle and then keep it going to where you're playing different roles within that triangle, and you may not even see it. This is how skilled they can be sometimes. They may get you in the role of the persecutor, the one that they say is pointing fingers, but then when they run to a rescuer, and that rescuer comes after you, then now you're the victim, right? Because now you're being attacked by the rescuer. So that manipulative family member, they know how to move roles and how to move people and get things going. And so kind of think of triangulation as a chessboard. That's really what it is. And if you can step outside of what's happening to you and look down on the board and see who's moving the pieces and how and why, I think you can get out of this a whole lot easier. Okay. Now, my second suggestion, it may feel a little bit weird for some people, but I think it's important. You want to use I messages. I don't like how this is going. I feel like you are disrespecting me. I feel like you are trampling over my independence and my ability to be happy and to be calm in my own life. I feel like you are trampling over all the love and affection I've showed you for the past 12 years, right? Whatever it is, use I messages. And here's why. iMessages allow you to kind of personalize your conversation. It also allows you to be assertive in a very nice way. When you talk to somebody that you're angry with or you're displeased with and you say, because I hate when people do A, B, and C, or I don't like when people mistreat people, right? Like, what does that mean? That's very vague. So you want to be very direct, okay? I don't like when you mistreat me. That's very assertive. It's straight to the point, and it allows for some structure so that the relationship can, continue on in an okay way. You know what I mean? And the conversation, you don't want to fight because that's the last thing you want to do with a triangulator, because they're going to go to somebody else and create a big scene. So you want to try to settle the situation, and the best way to do that is iMessages. Okay. The next thing is assert yourself in your position, but do it at the right time. You don't want to assert yourself when this triangulator is miserable. You don't want to assert yourself when this triangulator is just getting out of an abusive relationship and they may, bite you, so to speak, for lack of a better word. You don't want to stir the pot by asserting yourself when the triangulator is maybe in the hospital because they needed to be admitted against their will for some reason. You don't want to assert yourself in a way that can come across as aggressive or as if you're taking advantage of a situation, because they're going to flip that around and say things like, you won't believe my sister came to the hospital and told me off. Boom, there's a triangle. Or they may say something like, you won't believe I spent the night at my cousin's house and he literally told me off and he knew that me and my boyfriend just got into a fight. There's the triangle, because they're talking to somebody who's most likely going to say, oh my God, I can't believe that happened. Why would they do such a thing? That's so selfish. They're narcissistic. And boom, there's the triangle. The family member is the victim. The other person who's saying all those supportive things is now the rescuer. This can get really tricky, so you want to keep your eyes open. The next thing is, I think confidently and firmly make your boundaries known. It's okay to say, you know what, I'm not answering your email today. I'm just not. Or, okay, thanks for giving me about 7 voicemails in my voicemail box, but I'm not going to call you till tomorrow at 2:00. Let me give you a quick example of a very evil triangulator. So, I have a coworker that I have been friends with for a very long time, and she is really dealing with some really tough cases in her own private practice. She had a person consult with her 12 years ago, and I was actually in grad school at the time, but she called me and said, I need to talk. And she told me about a triangulator in a family who was really manipulative. She had borderline personality disorder. She was very dependent, very entitled, raised in a rich family, just no awareness of other people's boundaries, no empathy, no ability to kind of process what she's saying and doing. She just did whatever her heart told her she should do or could do. And she, ended up contacting her therapist, which is my coworker. And she said, I really don't like how our therapy sessions have been going, because I feel like you get on my mother's side and then you're not on my side. And my coworker told me that she told this client, this former client, by the way, that, I totally understand that, and I'm sorry if I offended you. And she said, you know what? I did tell my mom what you did, and my mom doesn't like when people talk to me the way that you talk to me. And so, my coworker said, in what way did I talk to you? And the client supposedly said, you were very mean to me and very rude. rude. And because my dad used to be that way with me, I felt I should share that with my mom. And so my mom will be calling you tomorrow. So my coworker came to my office at the time. I was working in a group practice while going to school. And, I was there in the background. I let her know I'm here. And she's like, okay, that's fine. And mom jumped on the phone and she literally started cussing out my coworker. And my first reaction was, hang up. We're not doing this. You're not going to be offended. And you're not going to be disrespected. Well, her client jumped into the conversation and she said, oh, and by the way, I reported you to the ethics board because I think this conversation today was inappropriate. So she had pulled so many people in. It wasn't funny. Okay. She pulled her mother in. And because my coworker was not sure how that conversation was going to go, my coworker pulled me in, and then she jumped back on the phone, the client, and then she pulled the ethics board in. And then my coworker had to go to her supervisor about it, and then her supervisor was involved. So it was like all of us involved in this situation until I backed out of it. And I said, you know what? I'm your friend. I've been your best friend for years. I'm okay supporting you, but you know what? I can't deal with this. I can't, but, she had pulled everybody in and it was evil. It was just so evil. And the only reason she did all of that, she ended up admitting that she made it all up, that, my coworker didn't talk to her rudely. She made it all up because she felt that her mother needed to pay for how she was raised. And so it was all this ploy to get back at her mother for something she felt her mother needed to pay for. So, that's a really deep, dark, depressing story. I was very shocked that it happened. And I learned then and there very quickly how evil triangulators can be. Thank you so much for being with me today in today's video. I encourage you to give it a thumbs up if it was helpful, and go ahead and hit the subscribe button and that bell button if you want to stick around with us. And we're going to keep talking about this, so stick around. I will be seeing you real soon. I'll see you then. Bye.